Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're opening up a file that touches on something I think pretty much every single person listening right now is chasing.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I don't say that lightly. Whether you're a CEO or a student, a stay-at-home parent, an artist, you are hunting for this specific thing.
That is a very bold opening hook right there.
Yeah.
What exactly are we all hunting for?
The good life.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
that secret formula for happiness and stability, success. I mean, we define it in a million different ways. Maybe for one person, it's the corner office in the Tesla.
Sure.
And for another, it's a cabin in the woods with 0 unread emails. But underneath the specifics, the sources we're looking at today argue that we are all looking for flourishing.
Flourishing is actually a really great word for it. It implies so much more than just surviving. It's about thriving in this holistic way.
Exactly.
It's not just having money. It's about your health, your relationships, your purpose. Everything is all firing at once.
Yeah, and today we're looking for the answer to that pursuit in a text that is roughly 3,000 years old. We are doing a deep dive into Psalm 128.
Which is historically known as a wisdom song.
Right. And looking at the sources we have, so the text itself and this really fascinating analysis on its modern applications, it describes the psalm as a comprehensive picture of flourishing.
It really does.
But here is the mission for this deep dive. We aren't just reading some ancient poem for the sake of a history class. We want to uncover the quiet strength that's hidden inside it. We want to unpack how this incredibly short text connects personal devotion to literally everything. Your job, your family, your community.
Because it is remarkably comprehensive for being so short.
Yeah.
I mean, it's essentially a manifesto for a stable life.
Yeah.
Just packed into a few lines.
So if you are listening right now, maybe you're prepping for a meeting or you're stuck in traffic, just grabbing a coffee stick with us. Because we're going to explain why fearing the Lord, which, let's be honest, sounds super intimidating and kind of archaic.
It does.
Is actually presented here as the secret to a happy life and not a scary one.
And that is the absolute key distinction we need to make right off the bat. Because if we get that wrong, the rest of the text makes no sense at all.
Totally. So let's just unpack this. Part 1. Defining the foundation.
Okay.
The psalm opens with a principle that sounds simple but is actually pretty heavy. Verse 1 goes, "Blessed is everyone that feareth the Lord, that walketh in his ways."
There it is. The condition for the blessing.
Okay, but I have to play devil's advocate here immediately. We have to stop at that word fear.
I knew you were going to say that.
I have to. Because in modern English, fear is a negative thing. It's cortisol. It's fight or flight. I mean, if I say I fear my boss, that means I'm in a toxic workplace.
Right.
If I fear my partner, I'm in an abusive relationship. So is the source saying we should be walking around just terrified of God? Is that the prerequisite for the good life?
No, absolutely not. And I'm glad you pushed on that because the analysis is very clear here. In this ancient context, fear does not mean terror. It's not about waiting for a lightning bolt to strike you because you messed up. It's not this cowering kind of fear.
So translate it for us then. What is the actual emotion or the state of being that's being described?
Think of it as reverence or awe. But even more than that, the source suggests it really means alignment.
Alignment. That's a very different vibe.
It is. Think of it less like being scared of a predator and more like the deep respect you have for a massive ocean current or a really powerful river.
Oh, I like that.
You don't hate the ocean. You might even love the ocean. It's beautiful. But you respect its power enough to align yourself with it. You swim with the current, not against it.
Okay, that clicks. Because swimming against the current is exhausting and it's dangerous. You're fighting a force that's just bigger than you. But swimming with it uses that power for your benefit.
Precisely. So when the text says fear the Lord, it's describing a life oriented around honoring that power and that reality. It's an orientation of the heart that recognizes, hey, I am not the center of the universe, and I need to align with the one who is.
But the text doesn't stop at the feeling, right? It immediately adds, that walketh in his ways.
Right, and this is the link to action. You can't just sit in a room feeling reverent. True reverence shapes your decisions.
It has to do something.
Exactly. If you have that alignment, that respect for the current, you walk a certain way. Your daily habits change. You don't just agree with the map, you actually walk the path.
And then almost immediately, the psalm pivots to something incredibly practical. It goes from theology straight to economics. Verse 2 says, "For thou shalt eat the labor of thine hands. Happy shalt thou be, and it shall be well with thee."
This is honestly one of the most grounding parts of the whole text.
It's super interesting because if we look at modern culture, especially like hustle culture or the financial independence movement,
Oh, yeah.
the fantasy is usually about escaping work entirely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The goal is passive income. The goal is the lottery win. You want to make enough money so you never have to lift a finger again.
Right. We define the good life as the removal of labor. But this psalm seems to present the labor itself and the fruit of it as the blessing.
That's the key insight. The source really highlights the dignity in work. The blessing isn't that money falls from the sky magically.
Right.
The blessing is that you put an honest effort and you actually get to enjoy the results. You eat the labor of your hands.
Is there a historical context to that phrasing, the eating the later part?
Yes, actually there is. In the ancient world, and honestly in many parts of the modern world too, it was super common to work incredibly hard and then have your crops stolen by raiders,
Oh, wow.
or taxed into oblivion by a king,
Yeah.
or destroyed by blight. So to work and actually keep the profit, to see the direct correlation between your sweat and your sustenance, that is the absolute definition of stability.
That makes total sense. It implies a complete lack of futility because there is really nothing worse than working hard. Maybe you're in a corporate job, sending emails into the void, and feeling like you just have nothing to show for it.
Exactly. This psalm is promising a connection between effort and reward. And notice that phrase, happy shalt thou be.
Yeah.
It suggests that happiness is a byproduct of that faithful, honest exertion. It's provision flowing from a life that is lived rightly, not a shortcut.
So we have this foundation of reverence, this alignment with God, and this blessing of meaningful, productive work.
Right.
Now the camera angle of the psalm shifts. We move from the workplace or the field into the home.
The domestic imagery. This is where the metaphors get really rich. And honestly, it's where we need to dig into the biology a bit to understand what's actually being said.
Okay, let's do it. Verses 3 and 4. Thy wife shall be as a fruitful vine by the sides of thine house, thy children like olive plants round about thy table. Now, I have to be honest here.
Oh boy.
If I went home and called my wife a vine, I'm not sure she'd take it as the highest compliment.
You might want to be very careful with that one on date night.
Yeah, exactly.
But in this context, it's incredibly high praise. You really have to understand ancient architecture and agriculture.
Break it down for us. Fruitful vine. What is the source actually telling us here?
So a vine planted by the sides of the house wasn't just a random bush. In that climate, a vine growing up the side of the house provided crucial shade. It cooled the interior.
Ooh, practical.
Very. And it produced grapes for wine and eating. It was beautiful. It was a centerpiece of the home's whole ecosystem.
But vines are also needy, right? They don't just stand up on their own like an oak tree.
And that is the technical nuance. A vine needs a structure. It needs a trellis or a wall to climb.
Right.
It symbolizes that the wife is central to the flourishing of the home. She brings the life, the fruit, the shade, but there is an interplay of support there. It suggests interdependence. She thrives when supported, and the house thrives because she is there.
I really like that. It's a beautiful picture of vitality and partnership. Okay, let's move to the kids. Children like olive plants. Now, I love olives, but I'm not an arborist.
Fair enough.
Why olive plants? Why not oaks or cedars or something just massive and impressive?
This is my favorite detail in the analysis. The source points out that olive trees are unique. First off, they're not fast-growing at all.
Okay.
If you plant a radish, you eat it in a few weeks.
Right.
If you plant an olive tree, you're waiting years for fruit.
So they require a lot of patience.
Immense patience. You plant an olive shoot, and you aren't seeing a significant harvest for maybe a decade or more. It's a very slow burn.
Okay, parenting is a long game. That tracks perfectly.
Doesn't it? But here's the other thing. Olive trees are incredibly durable. An olive tree can last for centuries.
Really? Oh,
Yeah. There are olive trees in the Garden of Gethsemane that are arguably thousands of years old. They survive drought. They survive rocky soil.
wow.
And even if you cut an olive tree down, the root system is so robust that new shoots, literally olive plants, will spring up from the roots surrounding the stump.
That is wild. So when the psalm compares children to olive plants, it's implying this long-term investment that is just incredibly resilient.
Exactly. It implies slow growth, longevity, a future harvest. It's not just about them being cute kids right now.
Right.
It's about who they are becoming 20, 30, 40 years down the line. It's about raising something that can survive the storms of life.
That is really profound. And notice where they are located in the text, too.
Round about thy table.
the table. The source heavily emphasizes table fellowship. This isn't just about having kids existing in the house, it's about the interaction.
It is. And notice what the blessing isn't. It doesn't say, "Blessed is the man who has a massive chariot," or a house with 10 bedrooms.
Yeah, no material flexing.
Right. It focuses entirely on the life inside the house, the relationships, the stability, the connection.
It paints a picture of what we could call rootedness.
Yes.
You have the vine, you have the olive plants. These aren't things you can just pack up and move easily. They are dug in deep.
And in a transient world like ours, where we move for jobs every 2 years,
Yeah.
and our communities are so fragmented that stability is rare, this psalm is holding up rootedness as a supreme blessing.
So we've looked at the individual, we've looked at the family. Now in part 3, the lens widens again. We zoom out from the dining room to the city.
The generational vision.
Verses 5 and 6. The Lord shall bless thee out of Zion, and thou shalt see the good of Jerusalem all the days of thy life. Yea, thou shalt see thy children's children, and peace upon Israel.
This is where we see that this quiet strength isn't private. It spills over.
It connects the personal to the communal.
Yes. Bless thee out of Zion connects the individual worshiper to the center of the community's faith. And then wishing for peace upon Israel, it shows that personal reverence actually contributes to the welfare of the whole nation. You just can't have a strong city made up of broken, chaotic homes.
That's such a powerful sociological point. The core unit of stability for the city is the stable family table. If the tables are broken, the city is broken.
Exactly. And the timeline extends too. Children's children.
The long view. I mean, we live in such a quarterly earnings mindset today.
Or even a 24-hour news cycle mindset.
Right. But this psalm asks you to look 2 entire generations down the line.
It's all about legacy. The integrity you live with today influences the peace your grandchildren will experience tomorrow.
Wow.
What you plant now, those olive shoots, others are going to harvest later. It challenges us to live for a future we might not even fully see.
That is a heavy thought, but also a really hopeful one. It means our actions matter way beyond just today.
Absolutely.
So let's pivot a bit here. We've unpacked the text, we see the vine, the olives, the work, but now comes the big question, the so what?
Right.
How do we apply a 3,000-year-old song to a world of smartphones, Slack notifications, and side hustles?
And this is where the rubber really meets the road.
Yeah.
Because if this just stays in the ancient world, it's just history. We need to make it useful for you right now.
Let's look at the modern applications suggested by our source. Application number 1, reframing success.
This is critical. Modern success is almost always defined by visibility. How many followers do you have? How fast did you scale?
How much have you accumulated?
Yes, it's loud.
Speed and size. That's essentially the American dream.
Right. But Psalm 128 offers a completely different metric. Success here is, do you actually enjoy your work? Is your home stable? Is the next generation thriving?
It's not flashy at all.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to go viral.
No, it's not. As the source calls it, it is quiet strength. And frankly, that is often much more sustainable than the flashy kind of success that just burns out in a few years.
Yeah.
It asks us to be okay with a life that might look ordinary on the outside, but is incredibly rich on the inside.
I really love that term, quiet strength. It feels very grounding. Okay, application number 2, connecting faith to daily life.
This goes right back to that idea of walking in his ways. The source challenges us to realize that reverence isn't confined to a religious space. It's not just for Sunday morning or whenever you attend a service.
It's so easy to compartmentalize. You say, well, this is my spiritual life where I'm nice and patient.
Right.
And this is my business life where I'm completely ruthless.
Exactly. But this psalm just blows that apart. Reverence shapes how you treat your employees. It shapes how you manage your finances. Are you honest? It shapes how you speak to your spouse when you're exhausted and stressed out.
Spirituality becomes practical.
It has to. If it doesn't touch your daily routine, it's not the kind of reverence Psalm 128 is talking about. It is a holistic integration.
Application number 3, valuing honest labor. We touched on this earlier, but let's go a bit deeper. The source advises diligence without obsession.
And that is a really tough balance to strike today. We tend to swing wildly between burnout working 80 hours a week because we think our work justifies our entire existence, and then checking out.
Like quiet quitting.
Yes, quiet quitting because we decide work is completely meaningless.
Totally. We binge work and then we crash.
The wisdom here is that work is meaningful, but it is not ultimate. It provides provision and stability, but it shouldn't be your sole identity. You eat the labor of your hands, you enjoy it, but you don't let it consume you.
Find contentment in faithful effort. That's a really good mantra.
It is. It takes the pressure off. You are responsible for the effort, for the planting. You aren't God. You don't control the weather. But you do control the diligence.
And finally, application number 4, investing in relationships. We're going back to the table imagery here.
The practical tip here is so simple, but so unbelievably hard to do in the digital age. Prioritize time at the table.
Actually sitting down, no phones, eye contact.
Conversations, shared experiences. The source reminds us that legacy is relational. You can leave your kids a mountain of money. You can leave them a massive trust fund. But if you haven't left them a model of faithfulness and connection, the legacy is hollow.
It's about the life inside the house again.
Yes. The table is the training ground for life.
This brings us to a really crucial part of our discussion. We've talked about the what and the how, but we need to talk about the relationship behind all of it. Why should we trust this path? Why should we trust God in this way?
That is the core question right there. Because following this path requires saying no to a lot of the culture around us. It requires deep trust.
The source actually describes God as the architect here.
Right. When we read, "Fear the Lord and walk in his ways," it is super easy to hear that as just a set of arbitrary rules. Don't do this, make sure you do that.
Right, just a cosmic buzzkill.
Exactly. But think about an architect's blueprints. The architect doesn't put a load-bearing wall in a specific place just to annoy the builder.
No, they do it so the roof doesn't cave in on you.
Exactly. When you look at the result in this psalm, the stability, the happy home, the peace, you realize that God's design isn't about restriction. It's about a path to well-being. He designed the human machine, so he knows how it runs best.
So trusting God means believing that his instructions are actually for our flourishing, even when they feel restrictive in the moment.
Yes. It's trusting that the architect knows more about the structure than we do.
And there's this major emphasis on faithfulness in small things.
This is vital. We often think trust is for the big cinematic moments, the medical diagnosis, the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But trust starts small. It isn't always about waiting for the Red Sea to part. It's about trusting God enough to make the right choice on a random Tuesday afternoon when nobody is watching.
The source literally says, faithfulness in small daily choices leads to long-term fruitfulness.
And that builds trust because you actually start to see the fruit. You see that when you handle your anger the way God wants, your marriage gets better.
Right?
When you handle your money with integrity, your anxiety goes down. You start to trust the architect because you physically see the house standing firm.
And speaking of standing firm, I think it's really important to note what the song doesn't promise. Because we definitely don't want to sell a false bill of goods here. We aren't preaching a prosperity gospel.
This is a huge point for building realistic trust. This text does not promise a life free from hardship. It promises rootedness.
Rootedness, that's a very distinct difference.
Storms still hit olive trees. Winds still blow against the vine. Droughts happen. We live in a broken world. But the promise here is that if you are rooted and tended, you survive and thrive through the difficulty.
It reminds me of that image of the tree planted by the water. The heat comes, but its leaves stay green.
Exactly. This deepens our trust because it sets realistic expectations. We aren't trusting God to be a genie who grants every wish. We are trusting Him to be the gardener who ensures we have deep roots so we don't blow over when the wind picks up.
That is such a healthier way to view faith. It's not transactional, it's relational and structural.
Perfectly said. It's about resilience, not exemption from trouble.
Well, we have covered a lot of ground today. Let's just recap the journey real quick because there was a lot there.
We started with redefining fear, not as terror, but as reverence and alignment, swimming with the current of God's design.
Yeah. And then we moved to the dignity of work, eating the fruit of your own hands, finding actual satisfaction in the effort itself rather than just obsessing over the exit strategy.
Then we visualized the home, the wife as the vital supportive vine, the children as olive plants centered around the table, focusing on slow growth, patience, and stability over instant gratification.
And finally, we expanded to the legacy, seeing the children's children and peace on the community. Understanding that our personal, private obedience actually has public consequences for the good of the city.
It's a message that is incredibly steady. In a world that feels so chaotic, so frantic and fast, Psalm 128 is slow and grounded.
Ancient families actually sang this on their way to Jerusalem. They sang it to remind themselves of what mattered. And today, it invites us to do the exact same thing. To cultivate flourishing right where we live.
To find that quiet strength.
Yes. To stop chasing the wind and start planting olive trees.
I love that.
Now, before we sign off, we do have a small request. We love doing these deep dives for you, taking these ancient texts and finding the practical wisdom in them, but we rely on our listeners to keep this whole thing going. If you found this deep dive helpful, we would love for you to join our community. Please support us by joining our mailing list at https://bit.ly/practicaladvice.
We share a lot of extra resources, deeper notes on the sources, and some great insights there, so definitely go check it out.
And finally, we want to leave you with a specific question to chew on. We talked about a lot of concepts today, but concepts don't change lives, actions do. So here is the question for you. How will you apply this information in your life?
Will it change how you approach your work tomorrow morning? How you eat dinner tonight? How you view your long-term legacy?
Think about it. Maybe it's just putting the phone away at the table tonight. Maybe it's changing your attitude toward a boring task at work. Whatever it is, we hope you find that flourishing. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.